Hello, everybody. Welcome to my podcast, Dimpled Hot Mess, and I am your gracious host, Dimples. Remember, when in doubt, a lady always has champagne. So, today I wanted to talk about the romantic comedy book, The American Roommate Experiment by Elena Armas. For those of you familiar with my Bookstagram and my blog, you all know I rated this a 5 out of 5 stars, and I couldn't resist also giving it a smut rating of 5 out of 5. So, overall feels of this book. Well, she was definitely a slow burn. Oh my goodness, was she a slow burn? And what I mean by that is that the author was building up to something, but it took a while to get into it. If you're anything like a reader like me, you know that I need to have my attention grabbed from the start, or sometimes it could be an uphill battle. I think I've said this with like Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. Like, I just could not get into this book for the life of me. I did try, guys. I tried, but it was not having it. Usually, I'm not into a slow burn, but the way that Armaz built the tension and the vulnerability and the complexities of the main protagonist, she made it feel so human and magical and real. She had me in her hands when she like built all that up for me. It low key made me miss like the world of dating because literature emphasizes everything, even the crappy parts sometimes. For example, I was super proud of the fact that the dating and the love life in general isn't easy for our female lead, Rosie, and for those of you who haven't read the book yet, I definitely recommend it because I will be talking in depth about this book. So that means spoilers are ahead. So if you haven't read it, I definitely recommend checking it out from your nearest library. So, as I was saying, dating and love life in general for Rosie, our main female protagonist, isn't easy for her. And it had something very real that I personally experienced from online dating, from dating apps to shitty dates and semi pretty men with even uglier hearts. I absolutely love the note that Elena Armas wrote at the beginning about those waiting for love and that love is a total drama queen waiting to make an entrance. On another note, is it that or did I low key? I felt Howl from Howl's Moving Castle vibes with our main male lead of Lucas. They seemed very similar to me. I don't know because I just watched Howl's Moving Castle that weekend, but for me, they just seemed very similar in personality. Like, and oof, don't even get me started when Lucas said, "That's my girl" to Rosie. I lost it and squealed in public because, I love me the darker and edgier masochistic leads. But what's more, sometimes I really do love me a good lead that's playful and can be spontaneous and the kind that isn't afraid of peeling layers from a very introverted and layered girl like Rosie, but with like a playful, light, and safe nature. Transitioning over to Rosie, I think she is one of the most realistic leads I've read about, and someone many women or people in the single world can relate to. She's trying to manage on her own, she's taking risks, and she's human, even down to the point of insta stalking Lucas. Because come on, I bet not a single one of you can say that we haven't stalked our exes or ex hoes every once in a while. But alas, she stands alone, and Lucas, oh my God. I think we all know how I feel about Lucas, but Lucas, man, I already knew and understand and speak Spanish fluently. But I had to call this one scene out because it made me laugh so much. Because I'm pretty sure it was when they were like having food or breakfast, and he says, la comida or the food to Rosie, and she's just like, "I like it when you speak Spanish to me." And he repeats the same food item, like I don't know, it was like a breakfast food item. I don't know what it was exactly, but I know it was like huevos or like something with like breakfast food in Spanish. And it reminded me of that SpongeBob meme where someone's like, "Talk Spanish to me. It's so nice. It's so sexy." Meanwhile, most of us just say like the most random shit ever. Like I'll say if someone like I think last time someone told me to talk Spanish to them, I was just like, "Oh, me gusta el Bad Bunny." I'm like, I don't really know. It's like just don't think about what you say. Oh, me gusta los huevos con weenies, and don't even think about like I was thinking about actual breakfast. Okay, okay, I know what you're thinking. But I'll admit though, this man Lucas was charming me through the pages. Could he was just he was so nice, top it all, and the way he was like devoted to Rosie is one of my favorites. Plot wise, I really enjoyed how Armaz took a simple trope that we as readers have seen many a time again with a fake dating to an entire new level, particularly ones that readers do not see coming, but it also engaged with how the characters communicated and set standards from the start. From the first meet cute, Lucas and Rosie were like awkwardly cute together. More so, Rosie already had the knowledge of stalking his Instagram for a while. From there, Rosie had an infinite longing for Lucas, and he came dramatically into her life in the form of sharing her best friends and his cousin's apartment. They get along enough to where Lucas and Rosie agreed to experimental dates, with Rosie listing out the feelings for each date. An example of the first date is the spark and interest. I personally enjoyed their fifth date, in which Lucas and Rosie got to enjoy the restaurant they went to, and finishing off the night where he reenacts the night they were supposed to meet down to the tiniest details with the wedding cake they were going to eat if they met at his cousin and her best friend's wedding. Another aspect of the plot that I enjoyed the most are the side storylines. Armas does an excellent job with like the tension building, but also suspense, because the perk of dual perspectives in a romance novel is it lets us know as readers that both protagonists are also going through their inner turmoil. For example, the mystery of Rosie lies with her brother Ollie and his distance away from family. I also figured it was something among stripping since he mentioned a club. I thought that was like, so that one was a little bit more easier to decipher. Either way, as much as I enjoyed the aspect of Ollie bringing Lucas and Rosie together, it didn't feel too needed, you know? Like, I understand that Rosie has a complicated life, and I think I would have liked to have dived in more into how Rosie and her father were able to be better connected, and Rosie stepping up and setting her own boundaries. Another aspect of the problems is the uncertainty of her latest novel. She went from a super set job at a firm to something more free falling, like a romantic writer. I get it. As someone who has a book in progress while also managing a 9 to 5, it is so difficult, but honestly, one of the most welcome thoughts to think about if you ever ask me. She's also the eldest daughter, someone who has had to be the strong one and never in a good way, sometimes because of that expectation and turmoil to be perfect, which I wish would have been more talked about with her father, because her father was a single dad and he worked and raised and tried his best to provide something for Ollie and Rosie. With Lucas, he was not as easy to decipher, though. Frankly, I found him to be so perfect and raw and sexy, not only to Rosie, but to me. I frankly thought he was just too seriously of a kind person to Rosie. And I'm not saying that Rosie was bad or didn't deserve the honesty. And honestly, I'm not sure if this is an American thing. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But mostly, and unfortunately, most hot men, in my experience, are nowhere near as nice as they want to be unless they find the women attractive or it benefits them somehow. But please prove me wrong. Please prove me wrong. I'm more open to having a hot guy treat me right from time to time. But anyways, back to the subject at hand. He definitely didn't have much douchey moments, but I think that it stemmed from his injury more than anything. Reflecting back on that now, I would have liked to have had a sneak peek of the past version of him. What was he like? Because he does reference himself. Like, what kind of person was he back then? He mentions how he had not been the same. with his injury, and I get that. But part of me can't resist wondering what was his personality like beforehand, so I could really see the shift to where he is now. And that's something that's like very human to also see in books is like I personally like a comparison between the past person and how much they've grown. Because Lucas just kind of came into it, but he wasn't someone I could solve a mystery with as easily. Rosie was more open and more human in the sense that her mistakes were very obvious. But Lucas was just like, I couldn't figure out what was the longest time. Maybe that's just me about what kind of person he was, or like how he got to be the sweetest kind of guy that has existed for me in a little bit in literature. So that's just me though. Please feel free to comment down your opinion below. Alrighty, guys. My favorite part of these kind of book reviews are smut readings. Yes, I do talk about sex and other enticing moments throughout this book. So yes, it is who it is. It is what it is. I love talking about this part. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 smut review because, oof, I was blushing in public. That's how enticing it was, to say the least. Not to mention, unlike Hoover's version of build up tension, this one had a much more literal, satisfying ending. They communicated, they consented, and they talked about what they wanted to do, which is so important. Not to mention the way that Armaz teased me about will they, won't they kiss up until the moment they did was mwah, chef's kiss amazing. I am proud to say that this book had steamy moments. With that being said, the tension building resulted in fireworks because for the first kiss, not only for it to be in the rain, but to be so steamy, even for me, made it completely worth the wait. And the little teases of glances and wants. Ooh, one of my favorite tension building moments was the masquerade ball and the bathroom scene where Lucas is helping Rosie clean up her dress. It really built the chemistry and sexual attraction that both protagonists feel, but Lucas is still wary of acknowledging, but for a moment does say, and I quote, I want to do the noble thing, Rosie. But I'm finding it really hard when all I want to do is sinful things to you. It's lines like these that make me really enjoy reading, dare I say, smut. Because not only is this a playful romance between two very unlikely people, but there is a sexual attraction so eloquently written with both steaminess and tension. It's enough to make me giggle and blush. Last of my favorite lines of smut that turned me into a full Lucas lover was their first night finally getting together. He says, oh, he was saying this to Rosie, to her. He's like, good's not enough. This is not a good fuck. But the cherry on top that made me really look at Lucas other than a beloved lover boy, or I guess, yeah, I would say cinnamon roll boy because he was really sweet. He's not my usual masochistic taste, but he made me swallow my words because about that because he turned into an alpha real quick with this statement, and I quote, I'm going to erase from your memory every loser that had you and didn't deserve you. End of quote. Like, holy shit. If any man sent that to me, I can't even explain how careless I would be that night. Now that that thirsty part of me is done and over with, let's talk about the ending. So, in regards to the ending, I thought it was realistically a happily ever after, as it could be for the modern, healthy, long distance loving couple that are just trying to make it work with each other and in each other's lives. Granted, I did think Lucas took a little too fucking long to come to his senses, but at last, in regards to some people, in relationships, it is often the way of love. Sometimes we just take a little bit longer than we'd like. He is full of surprises, and I'm thoroughly happy this didn't end on a cliche wedding, but It did remind me of a reminiscent scene of New Year's Eve of when Harry met Sally. For those of you who haven't watched, in Harry met Sally, the couple finally gets together after 13 years and they end up getting back, getting finally officially together on New Year's. It is reminiscent for me in that scene when Lucas comes back for Rosie. Overall, as a pair, they were realistic, healthy, communicative, and above all, steamy to a sauna. This didn't feel like a typical romance either because it felt long. It felt like something a love story, even in the modern world, can happen. Long distance is a thing and communication is essential, and both characters knew this and proceeded. It made the happily ever after ever so much more satisfying to have after their long journey of experimental dates and acknowledging their feelings. For that, I gave this review the stars and spice that it deserved. I am Dimples and I endorse this message. You could check out my bookstagram at Dimpled Hot Mess and my book blog at Dimple Hot Mess Reads Zero at WordPress.com. The links will be attached down in the description below. Thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in to my podcast. Once again, this is Dimples, your gracious host. And when in doubt, a lady always has champagne handy.